It's great to see you again, my gummy bear friend.
Nice to see you.
People will have to look up that interview. I guessed the color right.
We did the gummy bear game.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a very important game.
Wow. Great job.
Thanks.
This is kind of a different, what drew you to this role? It's kind of a different Emma than we've ever seen before on the big screen. Am I right?
I mean, that was a big draw, was to get to play a character that I had never really gotten to explore before. I just thought the story was so fantastic. The script was so well written. These characters are amazing. And I love Yorgos and think he's brilliant. So it was like sort of like it was an embarrassment of riches. Everything was, the cast, it was crazy.
Good to see you again. Congratulations. How challenging was this role for you? I mean, like I told you just a second ago off camera, I call it like a soap opera taking place in the 1700s with high stakes.
Yeah.
But how challenging was this role for you?
It was a delicious challenge. Lots of things to learn to do, like do 18th century ballroom dance, which also has voguing in it. Learn to shoot 1708 guns. But yeah, it was. The dialogue is so fabulous. It's so witty. The characters are so nasty and cruel to each other. But if only we all could have such great writing in our real life.
All these girls are going at it. I called it like a soap opera. They're all trying to outmaneuver themselves. And then there's Samuel, just kind of watching what's going on. Holding his own, but kind of, how did it feel to work with all these, amazing co-stars that you have?
It was amazing. I mean, like the three women are unbelievable in it. They're all such fully formed, incredibly drawn characters, and they are all so different and so complex and flawed and strong at times in their own right, and like you say, my character, like most of the male characters in the film, we're the ones that get used and trampled on and pretty humiliated. Yeah.
You guys actually spent 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, before production even started.
Yeah. That's
true. I'd read that. So tell me about that, and that's brilliant because it is a pretty spicy story.
Yeah, for sure. What was so nice is I've always really liked working with people for a second or third time. I work with a lot of directors multiple times or actors multiple times, and it was so cool because I knew none of these people very well. But after 3 weeks, it felt like we had already been working together so much because we had done the craziest things together. So we kind of walked into the first day of shooting with our arms linked and like slapping each other on the back and just happy to be together. And yeah, it really does help when you feel a big level of trust and fun and support with the people that you're doing all this, madness with.
Speaking of the smacking, you take a beating in this one. I want to talk about the accent, though, because you mastered it.
Thanks.
I was convinced. I walked out, I was like, oh, wow, she's British, too.
Great. Oh, thanks.
But how long no, really, because everybody, as Americans, we do that. We've got with friends, but I sound awful doing it. I sound like a stupid Texan trying to do a British accent. But how long did it take to get that down?
To be honest, I had been probably working on it for years. I'd been always kind of like dabbling with a British accent, and I had played Sally Bowles in Cabaret, who's a British character, but it was a very over-the-top version of that accent. So I'd sort of, had a foray into it, but I worked with a really great dialect coach. I was surrounded by British people who kept me on track. So it wasn't, it wasn't too bad.
What fascinates you? I will tell you that I'd heard of Queen Anne, but I didn't really know a lot about her. She was something else. So after I saw this, I spent like hours of researching.
Oh, you did?
Fascinating as you uncover the layers of what she did. And I'm not going to get into it because we could be here for hours, but actually the USA would probably look a little different if it wasn't for Queen Anne. Do you know about that? Because of King George.
Right.
She had no heir.
Right.
George
Okay.
ascended. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know a huge amount about that period of history. I obviously knew of Queen Anne, but not a huge amount, and I didn't know obviously about this story, which parts of it are obviously fictitious, but a lot of it is true. But it was funny. I expected us to kind of dive into that world and dive into. I thought Yorgos was going to want us to, research and open the history books. And when we turned up for the 2 weeks of rehearsal, we just didn't want any conversation about that or any look at the period or the time or the characters or who we were. That he didn't want us to get kind of stuck in a academic, intellectual mindset, and was far more interested in creating an environment that was kind of more absurd and allowed us to explore the relationships between each other. And we did a lot of weird exercises that meant that when we shot on the day, we'd all humiliated ourselves so much in front of each other, we kind of had no issue jumping in and doing it on set.
I heard you guys had done that for like 2 or 3 weeks before production
Yeah.
even started. True story. All right, so is it different to act like in a period piece like this? Mindset, actor, these people were real. You know, these are based on real events. Is it different as an actor going into a period piece?
Well, I figured I think it might have been more so in a more conventional period film, like I said about having to dive into research in a way that you can do with those stories, and maybe it's expected to, but I just think because of the way that Yorgos wanted to frame it and the tone that he was going for, it felt very different, but not because it was a period film, but because it was a Yorgos film.
Right.
He doesn't work, from my experience, in a conventional way, or what I'm used to or have experienced more traditionally from directors. There's very little direction in some sense. He lets you do what you want, which means you feel a little bit lost at first. But once you give yourself over to that, it's also kind of liberating. And you know that if you're not doing what he wants, he'll tell you.
Is this a story about like human nature and the quest for power and maneuvering? And yeah, it happened in the 1700s, but it still kind of plays out today.
Yeah, it's totally about human nature, about the lengths people will go to survive, to stay in power, to get power, to stay in love, to gain love. Yeah, it's, as you said, it's a 1708 soap opera with really high stakes because you get to run England.
Final question for you today.
Yeah.
How different was this acting experience for you than anything else you've ever done?
It was completely different because I've done period films before, but I've never done one that is this funny or this had this much swearing in it or this much.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, yeah, it's exactly what people are thinking.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome. We'll leave with this. What was the most challenging part about it? Was it the costumes? Was it, embracing the storyline that is kind of difficult? I called it a soap opera set in 1700s.
Yeah, no, I loved that aspect of it. That was the least challenging aspect.
So then what was the
all
most
of that.
challenging?
The physicality.
Yeah.
Falling down, smacking, tackling, all of that constantly, being whipped. It was just every day was a different pain. But it was all worth it.
I promise next time I'll bring gummy bears.
Oh,
I'm so
thank
sorry.
you.
Happy
I'm
holidays to you.
very upset.
Well, it won't happen again.
Thank you.
I promise you.
I'm holding you to it.
I'll go to Sam's Club and get a big old bucket of it.